Welcome to the land of illusion. Welcome to your final resting place. I see your mind's full of delusion. When you look in the mirror, do you see your own face? Welcome to California. A place for hopes, a place for dreams, a place for scars, a place for screams. Welcome to Hollywood. Did you?
Welcome to Modern Art Blitz. I'm your host, Matt Gleason, and on this show, we blitz modern art. We talk to the most interesting contemporary artists living today. We have yet to talk to a dead one.
We're working on it,
Lisa, bring your Ouija board. This is my lovely co-host, Lisa Derrick.
Hi.
And joining us today in the Sketcher's seat is our intern, Aliza Bejarano. Can we get a wide? There's Aliza.
There she
now you wore
is.
green, and we have a green screen, so your shirt is appearing to be our checkerboard.
Or
there we
something.
Go. There we
Oh,
go.
wow,
Yikes.
that's
Well,
trippy.
okay. So Aliza sketches our guest, and we're going to be introducing our guest in just a minute. And we have our whole show is devoted to one guest. We normally usually we have two guests, and break it up a little. But today we have a very special guest. But before that, to get into the show, I have to talk to Lisa. Had quite an achievement. You produced a movie, and it won an award.
Well, I associate produce.
Associate
And
produced.
what does the first letter in the word art mean? Association. That's what we learn in modern art or in Art World Boot Camp from you. Is that
yes.
it's association.
So you're the associate producer.
That's right, of a documentary called Dark Progressivism.
Okay.
Which is about art in Los Angeles, a distinctly South Sider, Southland style of art that came out of graffiti and tattooing.
Wow.
And it's like Big Sleeps, Deffer, Prime, who else falls into that? Roberto Gutierrez, who is an amazing landscape painter, and we won Best Feature Documentary in the Fine Arts Film Festival this weekend.
The Fine Arts Festival, Fine Arts Film Festival in Cannes, France?
The Fine Arts Film Festival in Venice, California.
Oh, okay. So you got, instead of a lion, you got like a calico cat?
We got a Hello Kitty.
You got a Hello Kitty. Okay, much better.
Believe me, it was pretty
Wow.
freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And
And you've been working on this for quite a while.
this is 2 years, actually.
Wow, 2 years of
2
your
years.
life, and you got a statue.
Not only did we get a statue, but we had our friends and family screening last night
Okay.
at the Silent Film Festival, or Silent Film Theater. I'm so nervous about this.
It's your baby.
Well, it is.
It's your baby. It's like a cat.
Except it makes more noise.
Makes more noise
And costs more money, though I don't know. But and we are screening again as part of New Filmmakers Los Angeles series next Saturday at 1139 Hill Street.
Okay.
You can find that at newfilmmakersla.com.
.com.
And we are also part...
Not .net. Don't accept any .nets.
No nets, no safety nets at all. And we're also, this is really exciting, part of what I did to help Associate produce the film is curate art shows with the director that had artists who fit the concept of dark progressivism.
Okay, so you're curating us up a storm though. So
Yes, but this was really my specific focus and desire. We did one at the LA Art Show. We did one at Red Pipe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, remember that one? And
They're
none of
like
my guys
Red Pipe.
graffitied at all. They were very good.
Nobody tagged the neighborhood. Nobody tags Chinatown. You hear?
That's right. And so as part of Art Gathering, which is a big tattoo and contemporary art festival on the Queen Mary, June 2nd through 5th, we have an exhibition called Mathematica 2, which is loosely based on the Eames, not the Ames brothers, but Charles and Ray Eames, Mathematica original. It was sort of an installation they did about numbers and computing.
Oh, okay, okay. It's not their math homework from when they were kids.
No, but
Okay.
this is, we have, because numbers play such an important part and in the underground world, like codes, secret languages, and so forth. All the artists are doing their work involving numbers.
Wow, cool.
Yeah,
cool,
so
cool,
I'm
cool.
very excited.
Well, you're
about
busy,
that.
and I'm so happy for you that you won the big award.
I'm kind of stoked, and I have to say, going to both Curators College and Art World Boot Camp made a vast difference. It did really help me, Matt. Seriously.
We're not here to plug my enterprises. Wait a minute, maybe we should be.
No, but I learned a lot from it. Made me more social and outgoing. Because you know I'm such a shy, retiring, delicate flower.
You know, us introverts. You know, we introverts. Okay, so well, I'm couldn't be happier for you, and I know the film's going to continue to, you know, I'm sure I'll be watching it on Netflix within a few years, months.
Hopefully.
Let's get it on
we're
Netflix.
looking at distribution, but we're still doing festival circuit.
Got to do the festival circuit, you know, because. Well, see, I'm in the art world, so I don't have to worry about the festival circuit.
You just have to worry about the fair
art
circuit.
Fairs. Yeah, they call it, that's interesting, film festival, but art fair. You know, because basically, I went to a festival, right? I went to a fair. How was it? It was fair. It's already given you the review, because every art fair, it was fair, you know. So, but you can't say that about a lot of art fairs. How did they treat you? Fair? No, they didn't treat me that fair. So anyway, well, I think it's time for our.
Yes, I'm super excited about it.
You're very excited about our guest?
Yes, I
I'm
am.
totally excited about our guest.
This is like...
And Eliza's going to have to be excited because she has to sketch him.
She is.
So,
this
and
is
he's
an honor.
and he's, you know, this is a rigorous rendering is going to be required here. Not to put any pressure on you, kid. And you're an intern, so you're not getting paid for this. Okay, so our guest today is an icon of Los Angeles art. You have seen his art. Forget the galleries. He was the original street artist. When today's street art legends' parents were in their diapers, this man was codifying what art for the people really meant, and he has yet to be matched. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Kent Twitchell.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Hey, Kent.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for being here today.
Well, thanks for joining us. We're going to start at the top because I've written about her, and I consider her to be your masterpiece, your Mona Lisa, if we will. The Freeway Lady, we call her. Is she still the Freeway Lady?
There have been some people suggesting she be called the Lady of the Valley.
Lady of the Valley. Yeah, she was on the 101, correct?
She was on the 101 for 12 years. I painted her in 1974.
Wow.
And it was the first painting I'd ever done that I really put a lot of color in. When I painted Steve McQueen in 71, I made him all blues, and I said it was because he was so cool.
Right.
It was actually because I was afraid to put color up there that big and make a fool of myself. And then the bride and groom, I put that all in blues too because I still wasn't sure enough.
So this is 1974.
74.
And this was on the 101 freeway or the
the Hollywood Freeway.
The Hollywood Freeway.
101, near downtown.
Near downtown.
Yeah, Edgware Road overcrossing, yeah.
Okay, so how many people, has it ever been estimated, how many people saw the Freeway Lady?
Oh my goodness, millions and millions.
It must have been millions.
Oddly, after I had painted it, people began sending me front pages of newspapers, little newspapers in, Iowa and Missouri and different places. Front page she was on.
Wow, just like, hey,
it was so outrageous that it was just interesting.
So now let's go back to 1974. What was the mindset in 1974 to street art as you, I guess you're a muralist, or is it called muralism? I mean.
I never even thought of myself as a muralist. I was just I thought of myself more as a folk artist. I really had more in common with Grandma Prisbury up in Bottle Village. That was sort of my hero. I didn't care that much about modern art and the philosophy of modern art and postmodernism and any of that. It was not really interesting to me.
Okay.
But I like to paint. And I always was able to paint and draw, so I wasn't naive, but I was still a folk artist, and I didn't really belong to any school. I was just out there. I couldn't wait to see what it was going to look like when it was done. Very naive. And with this, this was a little bit more thought worthy in terms of conceptual art and everything that I really didn't see any value in personally to myself. And figurativism was dead, and painting was dead. And so I thought I would paint something that would just be so out of fashion, but to me would be very valuable, because I loved my grandmother, and she lived in Hollywood, and she was always making these Afghans. So I thought, I'll paint an older woman, a monument to an older woman with this Afghan. I thought people would laugh at it.
Wow, but they really really revered it.
They really did. People would drive by the freeways and honk and wave and I love you.
Wow. So now this, we're looking at, this is the remake, correct? Is
Now this one right here, yes.
This is the remake. And this is at Valley College?
Yes, Valley College on the Student Services Building. You can see it from Fulton Avenue going south.
Okay, because sadly the freeway lady got painted over.
After 12 years, she was painted over in 1986.
Why?
Wow. Why was she painted over?
Well, before that, the owner of the building that had given me permission to paint her built a hotel in front of her. And a Japanese architect called me one day out of the blue in tears, because he had tried to give a plan that would allow glass so you could see through the glass and still see the freeway lady, but the owner didn't want that. He just wanted it to be covered over. He didn't have any reality for it at all.
Wow.
And so she was covered over to just below the moon.
Oh.
And then she was there for a couple of years that way. And so I had kind of lost, I'd lost my love for her after that, because I'd thought of taking chicken wire and going over the roof of the new building. And then paint an Afghan across it, but that never came about. And so then we began to restore it. And we had her about almost half restored.
This is in
This was in the 90s, I think 94 or something.
Okay, 1994.
And then she was hit by a tagger with those big bubble letters, and she was all vulnerable because we'd taken all of the protective stuff off, and we were restoring her carefully. We had a lot of volunteers, good artists that were helping us, and then she was hit, and she was destroyed at that point. So from then on, every time we tried to get her back, it met with disaster until Dennis Reed, who was the chairman at that time of all the art departments at LA Valley College, came to our rescue. Before that, it was Valley Institute of Visual Arts, and the Grossmans and Susan Cuz out in the Valley brought her back. I was going to paint her on their building. Okay. And then a lady who owned the lot right in front of their building at the last minute wouldn't give us permission to get her.
Oh, man.
And so, but then Dennis Reed came to the rescue, and we put her.
So she's a Valley girl now.
Yeah, she is. She's retired.
Exactly. It is such a huge, monumental undertaking. These pieces you do. Do you use projectors?
I have done every possible trick I can find on each of them. Each one is sort of different. With this one, with the Steve McQueen in '71, I was a junior at Cal State Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I had a lot of art professors there that were just so cool. And I would say, look, this was a Doug Deber, who was, I think, a Colorado artist that had come to replace Gary Lloyd, who was my first art professor there. And he just said, I'm going to give everybody in this class an A. This was very fashionable in 1971. And I know one girl went down in Mexico and bought a little a little matchbox with little fleas imprinted inside it. You could open it up. That was her A. And I painted a 2-story mural. That was my A. You know, which one was the smarter? You know. But with that, I did a drawing about this big and gridded it out and simplified it and cut it down into values. We had learned that in an illustration course that I was taking at Cal State LA. And then
Did you get an A in that class?
I can't remember. I usually did.
Had to ask.
and then there was a opaque projector that they had, and I put it under the opaque projector in the one of the other departments at the school, and I had this butcher paper that was 2 stories long. Butcher paper. I was flying in the wind, and I was tracing over on the freshly not gesso. I didn't know about gesso in those days. It just primered wall, and then I was doing the head, and I thought, why have I got the whole body here? So I finally cut off the head and learned my first lesson. And by the time I had painted the head up there, I knew this was me. This is what I wanted to do.
Can I ask, why Steve McQueen?
I had thought about different people, Charles Bronson, Clint Eastwood, but there was something about Steve McQueen. He was such an individualist. And I really liked that. There are certain people in Hollywood that didn't go along with the crowd.
Okay.
And McQueen was one of those, and it was just a gut thing. I really, really liked Steve McQueen.
Okay.
And that was the extent of it.
And it worked.
Yeah.
And now this house, you had to repaint this house, but it's still, the repainting is still there, right?
It's still there. It was, I think I came back in 1980 or 81 and fixed it. I painted it originally with the cheapest Standard Brands, remember the Standard Brands Paint Company enamels, and it began to fall off after about 6 or 7 years. And finally, you can paint acrylic over oil if the oil has lost all of its oil, which is what happens in the sun. And so I just sanded it all off and painted gel medium over the whole thing, and then went over and repainted with this time acrylic.
Wow.
And then and then it was painted out by accident. Some new people had come into the house and were told by the city to clean it up, and they didn't. And this wasn't known. I thought they were from South Korea, which was the rumor. So I didn't want to bother them. I just let it go. But then a grad student from Cal State LA came to do a paper on me, and he just went up to the house, knocked on the door, and they weren't. They were from Mexico, and they didn't speak the language, but they wanted it back. And I said, I'll paint it back. That's it, I'll paint it back.
And where is this house?
This is on Union Avenue at 12th Street. Just
12th and Union, which is actually, if you're at the Staples Center, you just go under the 110 freeway, and it's right over there.
It's very
I was
close
looking
to
for
downtown.
parking for a Lakers game, and I saw Kent Twitchell.
And I mean, that's the sort of thing that greatly would enhance the value of a house, to have some beautiful work of art by a legendary artist on it. And Steve McQueen too.
Yeah, Steve McQueen it doesn't hurt in that one, and because of Steve McQueen, was all over. I was getting interviewed from literally all over the world.
Wow.
I thought I was the next Andy Warhol. I thought this is it.
No, that'll inflate
This was
you.
easy,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I remember one day, the phone wasn't ringing. I thought, yesterday's news. That's how it
Yesterday's
works.
news. So, speaking of yesterday's news, who is this?
No, yeah, indeed. That was my monument to Edward Ruscha.
Okay.
It's funny because when I first came to LA in 1966, I went to the LA County Museum of Art and I saw Spam. It was
His painting Spam.
Yeah, Spam. And I didn't know it was Ed Ruscha. I didn't know who Ed Ruscha was in 1966. And of all the things I saw, I hated that. I just thought, I was so mad I couldn't get over it that anybody could have something like that in a museum. I didn't know whether to be discouraged as an artist or encouraged.
Or enraged, right?
Yeah, it was. And then at Cirrus Gallery, I was looking in the early days, and I saw his books. And I fell in love with this guy with these books, some parking lots, some storefronts, and some swimming pools. I thought, this guy, I just love him. And then it was years later I discovered it was the same guy.
Okay. So you made this monument to Ed Ruscha.
When I was at Otis, I realized that I wanted to, I had met more and more real artists, fine artists, and realized how hardworking, really authentic people they were. And I began to have a lot of respect for people that call themselves, visual artists. And I thought, I'm going to do a monument to visual art, California visual art, the way I did to the film industry with McQueen.
Steve McQueen, okay.
So he was my Steve McQueen of the art world.
So Lisa, you're stepping on the car hood of, in the photo. There, look how tall this is. You were stepping on the car hood there.
Wow, that is stunning.
Now, interestingly enough, this was also in the news later on. Tell us a story about the demise of your monuments, Edward Ruscha.
Yeah, there were a lot of little companies that were working with the Department of the Interior, I guess, to restore that building and earthquake-proof it. And I found out that you could earthquake-proof a building with just the size of a quarter going through it. You didn't, but they were just messing it all up.
Wow.
And that was happening over the course of time. And then Nathan Zackheim, who was an art restorer, was brought in by Cultural Affairs to take off some of that tagging where you just spray this stuff that would go 2 stories high. Yeah. And they were starting to paint it out. And so he advised them not to do it, that it would be illegal for them to do it. And they come to find out they had also talked with Pat Gomez at Culver's in downtown LA about that, and she had advised them not to do it. But they thought, well, I'm working for the Department of Interior, and nobody can stop me, and so they went ahead and
because federal is over city. Yeah. Wow.
And as it turned out, I called my friend, who was an art collector and also an attorney, Les Weinstein, and he was working for a firm in Pasadena. And I asked him to maybe advise me, somebody that I could talk to. And he says, we'll take it, we'll do it. And they did it for me.
So it got painted over by basically...
A bunch of people. I think there were about 11 or 12 different people, plus the Department of Interior. And the only one that apologized was the Department of Interior.
Wow.
Because they didn't do it. And yet they thought it was a terrible thing that had been done in their name.
Yes,
they were very nice, and it was the largest settlement that's in the history of
the largest settlement for having art painted over.
Probably 3 times more than had ever been done.
Wow!
Because they fought me for 2 years, and it was like a very, very unproductive 2 years because I was always having to go up north to storage and bring things back. And finally, I brought all my journals back. I had done journals from 1971 up through the date of this. This was going on in 2006, I think we're starting to fight it. And finally, all the journals that proved that I had access to the building. They gave me a studio on the top floor for nothing all during that time. I had a key. I knew where all the people were, and all these entries were in my journals. And when the other side saw those journals, I think that was what stopped it.
Wow.
Thankfully, I mean, the good result of this is this became, from my perspective, the foundation of the Los Angeles Mural Ordinance, which protects murals now in LA.
Yeah, the ordinance was an interesting thing. It was Cultural Affairs trying to protect the architecture of a lot of buildings that are suddenly being covered over by these giant, ugly...
The real big billboards, right?
The big billboards, and people were calling them and trying to stop it because it was making, Blade Runner was happening in the middle of LA.
Yeah. I remember the one for I think it was some Evian water, and it was like 40 stories high of the girl with the bottle of Evian.
Yeah, and a big Pepsi thing with just a circle with red. They were ugly,
these corporate logos just everywhere.
And then, and so they put a stop to it. But then the advertising companies and the corporations that wanted to be advertised began to sue the city or threaten to sue the city if they allowed a muralist to put something, because they wanted to be under the same rubric as the muralist,
okay.
And so suddenly they didn't dare have a mural up either.
Okay, so there were a few years where it was like a mural moratorium.
11 years it turned out.
Wow.
And I was grandfathered. I was working on the Steve McQueen during that because I was grandfathered before. All I was doing was bringing something back. And the Strother Martin in Hollywood, I was bringing that back too. So I was sort of restoring some murals, but no new murals could you do unless you were willing to have one of these types call and complain, and then they'd have to paint it out. So it was a terrible time. The mural capital of the world had become the graffiti capital of the world.
Is LA the mural capital of the world?
It was when the Los Angeles Fine Arts Squad, primarily Vic Henderson and Terry Schoenhoven, were doing these things that even before me, that were just beautiful in Venice. And I think that they and I got worldwide publicity because of this. The stuff looked good when it was blown up.
Yeah.
And then there were things that began happening in South Central Los Angeles and in East LA very shortly after. And suddenly it was just, none of us knew of each other until we would see what each other was doing in the newspapers.
Wow.
And then we would meet and so forth. So yeah, it was just natural because of the weather and everything too.
So we have is this the LA Chamber Orchestra?
The Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra.
And I was in downtown recently to this other side of the thing. They're building more now. So you don't have the vistas driving up the 110
That's right.
as you did, but they're not covering it in any way. Well, they're covering it now when they put Lisa there.
Over on this side, there's a big building.
There's a big building right there, but you can still see it when especially when you're stuck in traffic. I was stuck in traffic on the 110 just today and got a good look at it. So, what year did you paint this?
I painted Ralph Morrison here. I'm going to do this backwards. Ralph Morrison at that time was the concert master, the lead violinist, and I painted him in '91, and then. Julie Giganti. I didn't realize her last name was Giganti when I selected her. I was going to have an ensemble there, and she and I was photographing she and a lot of other women musicians. But for some reason, every one of my photographs, I was taking big 8x10 transparencies. So I could have a lot of detail, and she was the only one that really turned out in every one of them.
Wow!
And so I decided I would just put a lone woman there, which I think was a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great combo, and then you have the rest of the musicians in the middle.
And like 23 years later, she still looks exactly the same.
Oh yeah,
it's outrageous. I have to follow her around and see what she eats, but.
So now this is on the 110 freeway. Was this involved? Did the chamber orchestra pay for you? Was it a fundraiser?
It was sort of ironic. Les Weinstein again, who was a member of the board of directors, and he was sitting there, and they were commiserating over the fact that they are considered worldwide one of the top group of incredible musicians in the world. Highly respected all over the world, but in LA, everyone knows about the Philharmonic, and they're always saying, "Oh, I love your Philharmonic mural." No, it's the Los Angeles
Chamber Orchestra.
Yeah.
What is why is it a chamber? What is chamber orchestra?
It's a smaller
group.
It
Orchestra.
Yeah,
can fit in a chamber.
It can fit in a chamber.
As opposed to a symphony hall.
You learn something new every day here. You know, I never learned that at the punk rock concert. So why don't we move to the next? We have more of your art today, and I mean we could spend a whole episode to. We're actually this is
Lita Albuquerque.
This is Lita Albuquerque, and show the next one, Nolan, because this is the response. The next image to this is across from
Jim Morpheus' monument.
Now this was on the 110 North, but now where is it?
That's right, and now it's on the 101 going east-west, and this is right at the foot of the new cathedral.
The new Catholic cathedral,
and it's funny because it was for the Olympics, 1984 Olympics.
1984 Olympics.
And there was all the threats about terrorism because of the previous Olympics.
Wow.
And so I decided that I didn't want to put something too narrative. I'm not really a narrative painter, and I wanted to just keep painting monuments to my favorite artists. And so Jim Morpheus, I've loved his work since I can't remember, and Lita Albuquerque as well. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do a religious piece because I love doing religious pieces on government buildings. and so Jim had painted himself as a Christ figure, doing double crucifix, and a lot of people didn't realize he was using himself as the model.
Okay.
He was, very, cut, pectorals and everything, and he was using himself as a model. And so I thought, well, he's already a Christ figure, so I'll use him as Christ. And who shall I have as the Virgin Mary? I thought, who do I really love right now as an artist? Lita Albuquerque. Perfect.
Perfect.
And we were both teaching at Otis at the time, and I spotted her walking across the campus. I ran up to her, and I always had my camera with me all the time in those days. This was 83, 82. Yeah, because I painted her in 83, so it was 83. And I said, Lita, pose for me like this. I said, I remember years and years ago, I saw Picasso looking through a window like that, black and white of him. And I've always loved that. I want you to pose like that. I thought I told her why I was going to do it, but I guess I didn't. And she posed, and I took a whole bunch of photographs of her, maybe 10 or 12. And we talked a bit, and then the next thing she knew, she was on the freeway.
She was a surprise to her.
Luckily, she's a nice person.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit. How many artists would litigate in that situation?
But that was since 1983. She's been there since.
So this painting is not on a government building. Where is this one?
That's in La Mirada, where Biola University, which the original Jesus Save sign in downtown Los Angeles was the original Biola.
The Bible Institute of Los Angeles.
The Bible Institute of Los Angeles, right.
Biola.
And that is, I have a lot of friends there in the art department. Barry Kramus and Dan Callis, and they asked me to come over and teach a murals class, and then maybe paint a mural. And so we looked around and decided this was a science building. And I thought, I'll paint a Christ figure there. I had painted one in '84 between Rita Albuquerque and Jim Orpheus. I painted one in South Central Los Angeles, a really tough Mexican Jesus on a liquor store.
Okay.
And I wanted to paint another one, but really more like the Rembrandt Caravaggio-esque type. And I had met this artist, Jay Gam, over at Claremont Graduate School. I was doing a talk there. And he looked like this, except for I said, look, let your hair grow more and your beard grow more.
Wow, okay.
I gave him $50. I said,
$50 to grow a beard.
Yeah, and call me when,
call me when it's grown.
and I put him on a box and wrapped this sort of mantle around him, and I had this tunic made. And I decided, well, I'll have a Bible, the biggest, thickest Bible I could find, which is at that time, everybody was always asking me when I was painting it, what kind of Bible is that? Which version is it? It was the first New International Study Bible, which is really thick. I wanted a really thick, ominous Bible to hold on to, which made it a little bit controversial because there can't be Jesus in the Bible at the same place. But Jesus is actually Logos, the Word. And that's what I named it in a bronze plaque, Logos. And the Bible, I used flesh tones from him to paint the pages of the Bible, so it's the Word.
The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us.
Exactly.
And the olive tree there, now La Mirada was an olive grove.
That's right.
I grew up in La Mirada. I have to kind of give my props.
It also ties into Mount Olive.
Yeah, is that Mount Olive?
That had to be the olive tree was there, and I did it around the olive tree, and the shadows around that incredible group of windows, and then. A few years ago, the olive tree died, and they took it out.
Oh no!
I freaked out. I said, "We've got to put another olive tree in there," and they did.
They did. So compositionally, it's going to get back to.
They had to put one, and then there's a new in there now.
Okay, so
I had a terrible painting for about a year.
The composition dies without that tree.
Couldn't sleep.
So now, is this mural still up?
This mural is. This was I painted this in 1979. I called it 6 LA artists, because that's what all the art shows were called, 5 LA artists.
Oh, yeah. Five LA artists, okay.
And I didn't mean to, but as it turned out, they were all graduate of Otis Art Institute.
Wow.
Yeah.
So who are they? Do you remember?
Marta Chaffee-Stang on the far left. She was a student when I was there. Alonzo Davis, the next person, who had graduated before I did. Paul Serban, who graduated the same year I did, in the middle. He's the Christ figure with the.
Oh, okay. He shaved his beard for this one.
Yeah.
You didn't give him $50 to grow a beard for this one. Okay. Well.
This was before. It was one of my early paintings, government building religious paintings, and then Oliver Nolan, who's doing right now a lot of neon works, incredible artist. Wow. He graduated a year before I did. Eloy Torres, before he had ever even thought about doing anything in the.
He was a mural before he was a muralist.
Yeah, exactly.
Eloy. I haven't seen Eloy with hair that long.
Well, he had his hair all curled for it. It was like Harpo Marx. I thought, Eloy, that's how you're going to be forever now. I hope you're happy.
He went and got a perm of the wrong one.
Yeah, exactly. And then Wayna Cato, who graduated in the same class
I know
did.
Wayna. Wow.
Yeah, marvelous person.
Wow. Wayna lives in South Pass now.
Yes, and John Schroeder was her.
Yeah, she was married to John Schroeder for many years.
Who was the nicest guy in the world.
Oh, one of the greats, yeah. That's another one. If we want to have John Schroeder as a guest, we'll just have to have a.
That's right. Well, that'd be a very special celebration and ceremony.
Yeah. So, and this is still up.
Still up from 1979. It's still there.
Okay. Now this is your. Now, did this ever get shown publicly?
I had an opening in 2009, I think March of 2009. There was a short-lived gallery that, in fact, that you did
I
a
did
couple
some.
of shows
Yes,
for
I
them.
did a couple shows with them. Yes,
Incredible gallery. That Jerry Levy.
Jerry Levy's gallery was a great gallery. Yes,
She turned it was a terrible, ugly storage space that she turned into one of the most beautiful galleries in LA, high ceiling. And she taught me into doing a show. I didn't want to do a show, but I don't have anything to show. And then I realized, wait a minute, the Michael Jackson, and then I could redo the McQueen, and I could put him in there, and so we did. We had an incredible show, and Peter Frank came and curated it. So that was her first show. But this was long before that. I was painting both Michael Jackson and the chamber orchestra at the same time.
Whoa.
So this was 92. This is probably about 1992.
Now, so you worked with Michael Jackson.
Yeah, Michael had gone to the Hollywood Chamber, Hollywood Art Council, who was one of the most healthy art councils you'll ever know, and asked if they could bring me on board to do. He had an idea.
Wow.
And the people at the Hollywood Arts Council, Oscar and Niall Arslanian, knew me very well. And they knew that I had been offered other things, but money is not an incentive. Unfortunately, I wish it was. I don't have enough discipline just to paint for money. It has to be something that I really believe in. Otherwise, I can't get up in the morning. I'd rather just watch Netflix all day long. And so I had turned down 4 or 5 other offers. The one I came closest to was to paint Elvis back in Vegas, and they were all like 6-figure, to do. And I was going to do that because I loved Elvis, but they wanted me to paint what I called the Liberace Elvis, the white studs, and I said, I can't do that. I can't get up in the morning and be having an incentive to do it. And so I turned that one down too, but then they finally said, it's Michael Jackson. I said, yes. I loved Michael Jackson.
So you got to meet him and hang out with him?
He would call me all the time. The phone would ring and he'd be in his car, and we had all these ideas of things that we were going to do with this.
Wow.
And, we became good friends.
And is this mural now anywhere?
It is. Marie, where's the mural now? It's in the studio, or
it's in storage.
It's in storage in Long Beach, in storage.
You painted it onto some kind of material.
That is how I discovered this material. It's called polytab, and it's used in the garment industry.
Oh, wow.
And I buy it sometimes from a place called Three Shirt Crew in Vernon, and other times at QST Industries on Washington Boulevard, just east of downtown Los Angeles.
Okay.
And it's not that expensive, but it's extremely wonderful stuff. I had painted on what I call parachute cloth before that.
Okay.
In fact, Jane Golden's outfit, the healthiest mural program in the world, she does in Philadelphia, and she brought me there in '89 to paint a mural. I painted Dr. J on what was nylon, and that's pretty good too. But the problem with nylon or canvas or anything else is you don't get purchase all the way through the material. You've got that other stuff in between. But with this, it is complete absorption.
It really, and it's also durable.
And it's tough. Yeah, it's like putting Kleenex in milk and bringing it out. It's soaked.
I think we have the Dr. J mural. Let's see what we.
What kind of paints do you use then with it?
I use acrylic paints. I learned to just use certain pigments, and I mostly used local Novacolor.
Novacolor from Culver City.
I did a lot of tests with them. When Standard Brands was still there, they gave me a bunch of their room there in Torrance, and I did a lot of tests on all the different paints. And Novacolor turned out to be just as good as anything else. Wow. When you speed up everything. And so I use Novacolor. I still have a lot of golden from the Michael Jackson. I painted Michael Jackson and the Chamber Orchestra in golden. I still have a lot of that left.
Wow. Is this the Dr. J?
That's the Dr. J.
And that's in Philadelphia?
That's in Philadelphia, and that's still there. I painted that in '89.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how tall is that building?
That's 3 stories, so it's
Wow.
about 30 feet,
Well, it's a little taller than Dr. J himself.
just slightly.
Dr. J was a basketball player.
Yeah, I know
You
who
knew-
I know who
Okay,
Dr. J is.
Did you know who Dr. J was?
Julius,
Because you're. Yeah. Okay.
Julius Irving, incredible. I mean, he was like a ballet dancer compared to other,
Oh yeah.
So then is the material affixed to the building?
Yes, I painted it. They gave me a called the International House. They gave me the top floor a nice sort of a suite overlooking the University of Pennsylvania campus, and I was there for I don't know how many weeks, painting and night and day on these little grids, which you do to paint murals anyway. You're painting in grids, but I was painting on grids on this material, and then the mayor was saying, "Who's this so-called hotshot from L.A.? Weeks go by and there's nothing on the wall. What's he doing? And I guess he didn't get the memo. And then and it was raining outside, and I was still painting, so it didn't really matter. And then all of a sudden one day it was ready, and and in 2 days it was up on the wall. We put it up with gel medium.
Right.
And he had to admit you were a hot shot.
And then it just, so do you does it unfurl? Do you like pull a cord and it goes?
That would be great. They're just in little pieces and labeled in the back. And so I just put them at one at a time.
So it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
How freaky! Thank you for. I had no clue. Wow.
And sometimes I'll get really big, but I think 3 feet by 4 feet is as big as I can handle it and have it be perfect. So I don't go any bigger than that. I've tried it.
Does it always match up when you're done?
Pretty close.
Pretty close?
Yeah, now that we've got digital projectors and I can do all of this finagling online on Photoshop, they really match up beautifully.
Wow.
But before that, I would have to go in there and touch up. And
now this is a friend of yours.
Yeah, I met when I was my first religious painting on a government building was when I was a student of Charles White at Otis, and Charles White, the great African American drawer painter, that was like a father to me. I just idolized him, and he was like Rembrandt walking around like a normal person on that campus. And we were walking by the main classroom building facing west, just off from Wilshire on Carondelet, facing the library and La Fonda restaurant. And he said, "Why don't you paint this wall, Kent?" And I thought, wow, okay. And so I had to get permission from the county. It was the county building, county board of supervisors. It took months. And so finally I got it through, got all their signatures, and I just said it was going to be 3 people in white lab coats, but I already knew it was going to be a religious painting. And so I decided I was going to paint after Masaccio's altarpiece, the Holy Trinity and the Virgin and St. John. I was going to drop out St. John and put the Holy Trinity with the Virgin. And I thought, okay, who can I have as the Virgin? Jan Clayton, who I grew up with in Lassie. She was the original mother in Lassie, also an extremely gifted singer and actress on Broadway, and just amazing. And so she agreed. I met with her, and she agreed, and I photographed her. And I'd always had this love affair as a fantasy friend with Billy Gray from Father Knows Best growing up.
Right.
I thought that was the coolest guy, and he was Jim Thorpe, All-American, as a little boy. The guy was just an incredibly gifted actor, and I thought he was the son of the father who knew best. I'm serious about my iconography.
Okay.
And so this was all 50s TV iconography.
Okay.
Like we were studying Renaissance art at Otis, and I thought I've got my own icon. So I contacted him, and he came over to the house I was living in Pasadena, and I told him. He literally fell off his chair. He loved it. He said, yes, okay. And he posed for me as Christ. And then my first wife, Susan, she had her best girlfriend, father, and Clayton Moore were in the military together. And you couldn't get to Clayton Moore. He was impossible. But she got...
Clayton Moore was the Lone Ranger.
He was the Lone Ranger.
He was the actor.
He had to be God.
And it's hard to understate how big he was in pop culture back then.
Oh my
There's
goodness.
few people today that have the overarching presence that he once had.
Because I used to listen in the 40s and early to the Lone Ranger on the radio, and you could watch the radio and you could see all the things if you were visual. And then I remember hearing that it was going to go on television. I was a little bit worried. I was still a little bit fantasy, reality confused, but I knew that there was going to be an actor playing the Lone Ranger. It was very difficult for me. And I saw him for the first time. My grandparents who lived next door had one of the early televisions, little teeny black and white screen, and I was scared. And it was the Lone Ranger, Clayton Moore. It was like perfect. I couldn't believe it. And so when I first met him, I came to his house and he wasn't quite there yet, and then he came around. He was running in his jogging suit, and he had these big goggles on.
Because he was never photographed without his
That's
mask,
right.
or okay.
And I thought, I'm going to die, because this guy, I was in my 30s, but I remember, when you see somebody like that, we're all 12. I'm just 12.
I'm 12, you're 12. The person that you fall in love with at 12 is your hero forever.
Yeah, the rest of it is just bullshitting.
Yeah.
But I got to know him a little bit. We went. And his wife never trusted me, and because so many people had been after him, she was protecting him.
Oh yeah.
Johnny Carson had been after him to go on the show. He wouldn't go on without his mask. So
Wow.
and that never happened. And so I blew it when I took the photographs. I was just so nervous, and so I had to come back. And then I took some more, and then he said, I want you to show me what you're going to do with the face. And so I did this, I think his face about this big, and then I brought it back, and so I went to his house 4 or 5 times probably. But by about the 3rd time, I remember his wife, I was in his den, and we were sitting on the floor, and that's how I realized this guy was an ominous man. But we were sitting on the floor, and we were both 12.
Wow.
And we were going through the guns, and he let me put his guns on, and just he had these closets that were like military closets, because I had been in the Air Force. We had these closets. Everything had to be 1.5 inches apart, and that's how his uniforms were. All of his Lone Ranger uniforms were perfect.
1.5 inch. Oh boy, military style.
It was, but the guns were heavy.
Well, we got so much more stuff. I want to go through a little faster. Who's this?
This is Mac McLean, who was a sculpture professor at Cal State Los Angeles.
He was a professor of mine at Cal State LA too.
And he was an icon, and I just loved him. He was like an original hippie. He was a hippie before there were hippies.
Before there were hippies.
And after there, because he was just the real thing.
Where is this?
This I think is owned by Lamont Westmoreland.
Oh, okay.
I think that's in his home.
Lamont, who taught at Cal State LA
Yes,
too?
yes.
Well, let's keep going here.
That's life size. That's about.
I recognize
6
that
foot
on your
high.
thing. And who is this?
And this is Tamara Thomas, who was, during her life, she was the ultimate art consultant of Los Angeles.
And one of the great public art advocates in the history of LA, right?
Oh, she was, I idolized her, and she was a dear friend.
Wow,
and
wow.
And she had done so many things for me that she wanted me to do this for her husband for their wedding anniversary, and I refused to take any money for it. She argued, no, yes, absolutely not. You've done so much for me, I won't do it.
So, and who's this behind you? This is Will Rogers.
Will Rogers.
Okay, now show the next slide. If we show the next slide, is basically there it is as a mural.
Yes, that was I painted him on both sides of the historic California Theater in San Bernardino.
Okay.
And that's the older Will Rogers. That was at the time probably the most famous
man in his lifetime.
During his lifetime, yeah. He was at 20th Century Fox.
So let's keep going here. There's a few more.
This is something that I wanted to do of Christ that almost happened, but it fell through in a building South Central Los Angeles. I wanted to show that Christ was a willing sacrificial king. His eyes, I wanted them to be powerful, but
wow. And I know we have one more. I saved this one for the end. Back where we started. Now, tell us about the woman who posed for the Freeway Lady.
That was Lillian Bronson. Lillian was the mother. She was the mother of Henry Fonda, the stepmother of Maureen O'Hara in Spencer's Mountain, which is the photograph that I liked when I went to the Screen Actors Guild in '73 and was looking for somebody that looked like they belonged to my family, like my grandmother. Yeah. And I wanted it to be a character actress that people would have seen 100 times, so that when they looked into those eyes driving by the freeway, it would look familiar to them, but they wouldn't know where because it was out of context.
Right.
And I got to know Lillian Bronson. She has a relationship with James Whitmore and James Whitmore Jr., whom I met through her,
Wow.
and became friends with James Whitmore Jr., who's an incredible director and of course character actor as well, and she became known thereafter. She was always giving lectures at libraries and so forth, and she became known thereafter as the Freeway Lady.
As the Freeway Lady.
Yeah. And then she became Fonzie's motorcycle riding grandmother on Happy Days.
So maybe this indirectly revitalized her career.
She got on the freeway with Fonzie.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see how the sketch of you turned out, Kent Twitchell. From Eliza Bejarano, let's take it over here. We have a sketch of...
Why don't you go over and stand next to
incredible.
Mr. Twitchell?
He can't get in the camera there.
She can move back around.
So there we
I
go.
love
Wow.
it. I love
All
it.
right.
I love it.
Thank
That
you.
is great.
From the sketcher's seat to your seat. We do this every week, streaming live at 5 p.m. Pacific on dronebox.com. This is Modern Art Blitz. My name is Matt Gleason. I'm your host. This is Lisa Derrick. She's been our lovely co-host. In the sketcher's seat today was Eliza Bejarano. Our wonderful guest for the whole hour today, and we could have probably done a whole nother hour.
Can we have him back? Can we have him back?
We'll have to have you back for Volume 2.
If you're sure. Yeah.
Kent Twitchell, the legend of Los Angeles street painting. We do this every week, and we're also archived on YouTube, and now we even have a website, modernartblitz.com, where you can catch the back episodes if I properly download them. So thanks for joining us, and where's our theme song?
It's a place for stream. Welcome to Hollywood.